while I was writing my first grant application for summer funding, I realized how little I knew not only about grant writing, but also about the process of selecting a grant and how the process of reviewing an award selection worked. And so as soon as I saw on the register that a class was being offered on grant writing and fellowship writing, I decided to take it.
I had written several grant applications previous to taking this class. Some had been successful, others hadn't been successful, and I was interested in learning more about the principles of grant writing and how to incorporate grant writing into an academic life.
I knew I needed to work on my fellowship writing skills. It's not something that is necessarily built into our departmental curriculum, and so when I saw that this class was going to be offered, I jumped at the opportunity.
So we had all kinds of different tools and activities to get the most out of the instruction. So we had invited speakers, but not only faculty members, but also graduate students who had gone through the process of applying for fellowships and grants. That was very useful to get like different perspectives. We also had invited speakers who were from other areas, not just faculty members and graduate students, but who also work in the Office of Research Support and who know how to find funding opportunities.
I think one of the things that I found very valuable about the course was the peer-to-peer feedback and also the instructor feedback on the fellowship application drafts. So I feel like we really moved through moving from identifying grants to drafting proposals to getting peer-to-peer feedback to then receiving instructor feedback and constantly revising throughout.
And usually the case is that we as PhD students get to the point in our career where we have to write grants without any sort of like formal training on writing them. And so it was very useful to have not only a great instructor, but also a group of peers to walk you through the process of how grant writing works, which is very different from the research writing that we usually do.
I learned a lot about how to find money, where to look, not just common websites that list grants, but how to investigate different foundations and see what kind of things they're giving money to. I learned how to look at other grant applications that had been successful and see a model that I could use for my own work.
Learning about the Pivot database, which has a comprehensive list of different fellowships you can apply for, that was really great.
I talked to some people in my program too to just say, hey, did you know about Pivot? And they're like, what's Pivot?
Learning to write to an interdisciplinary audience is kind of the biggest takeaway from this class because when you are applying for a fellowship, you probably aren't going to have a specialist on the panel looking at your application, and if you do, you're lucky. But either way, you really have to write for everybody.
Really thinking about timing more carefully in terms of how far out do you really need to be thinking about writing a draft of a fellowship application. And you know, if I had thought 2 months before, I think 4 months perhaps is a more reasonable estimate. So even just thinking about when to get started, when to seek feedback.
So I think that before taking the class, my approach, very empirical approach, would be to 2 weeks ahead of the deadline, sit down and write a draft within a few hours, and then wait a couple of days and then rewrite and then submit it the day before the deadline. Now I know that is not a good practice, at least not for me. And I'm trying now to design a 3-year plan of grant applications, and I have committed to start working on the grants I want to apply to at least 6 months ahead of time.
The course also included many aspects that are not very specific to grant writing, but that could be used in all the types of writing that you can imagine. Like, how do you develop a writing habit? How do you make it part of your life and make it something that is enjoyable? And that is truly important because writing is something that we get to do a lot. So it is very important that we get to enjoy the process.
Maybe the biggest thing that I took out of it was that grant writing is an important part of a successful academic career, because it can open up a lot of new doors and new opportunities that you wouldn't have had otherwise. So I learned about grant writing to get time off from teaching or time off from university duties. I learned about grant writing for different stages of a project, for early stages when you're doing research or archival work to later stages when you're doing writing. I learned about all these different purposes that grant money and fellowship money can be used for. And that was really important for me because I hadn't realized the extent to which I could use all of these skills and the kind of money for different stages of a project that I could get.